I don't know. I can imagine quite a bit.
Where did you dig up that old fossil?
Going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
That's no move.
We're all fine here now, thank you. How are you?
Welcome to the Star Wars Nerds Podcast. I'm Dan Kenton.
And I'm Kenton Larson.
It's been a bit of a stretch without an episode.
We're back at school.
I guess you could say we took a summer vacation, although we did not announce it on the podcast. So I apologize to our listeners who are wondering where the hell we were for a month and a half.
Well, we did go to the round table.
That was a Media Nerds thing. That was not a Star Wars Nerds. We
actually haven't done crossover.
We have not. No, we did
none.
not discuss such Star Wars. We have actually not posted a Star Wars Nerds episode since mid-June. So I apologize. It has been a couple months.
In some ways, though, I mean, because I've been listening to Star Wars podcasts as I always do, and there hasn't been a lot of news. So there's been a lot of sort of shooting the shit around the table.
Isn't that what we do? That is what a Star Wars podcast is.
No, but you know what I mean. like we're sort of in the little desert before Force Friday, and it all gears up again.
It's got to start gearing up soon. I mean, when is D23? That's the question, right? So I'm going to quickly look that up.
Are you calling Bob Iger?
Yeah, I'm going to call Bob Iger, get him on the phone, and say, what's the deal, man? Today we're going to talk a little bit about Mr. Iger and the underperforming Galaxy's Edge theme park at Disneyland. It's not doing as well as they thought it was going to do, apparently.
Well, enough to the extent that he had to mention it at a shareholder conference call.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll put some audio of that in there. So D23, 50th anniversary for Walt Disney World coming up this year. And
the moon landing and Woodstock.
And Charles Manson murders. So there you go.
Oh, there's so much to celebrate.
So many things happened in 1969. It's just an amazing...
I was born in 1967, by the way, and 2 years later, all hell broke loose.
That's right.
So I'm not saying that they're related.
So it looks like D23 is next weekend.
Oh my God.
So that's going to be something. So we'll have lots to talk about next week. I'm assuming we'll get another trailer, probably get a poster, something for The Rise of Skywalker.
Well,
right?
At this point, I mean, we're pretty late in the game at this point. I think there's probably some people on planet Earth who do not know that the next Star Wars movie is due this December.
It's been so long since we got the initial teaser trailer, and I think that, do you think they got a little gun shy when it was clear that Solo was too much, too fast, and people kind of pulled back from it? Do you think Disney got a little gun shy and said, okay, we can't just like inundate everyone with Star Wars all the time. We have to kind of space this out a bit more.
Well, Bob Iger said as much where he basically said we gave him too much too soon, kind of thing, and that's probably true. And we've even had that conversation where it's like Marvel gives people their sugar craving all the time, but that seems to be the one that people accept it from, and less so from some of the other franchises.
Yeah,
if there's 2 James Bond movies a year, that would, by definition, water down.
There's not even a 1 James Bond movie a year, right?
If there
it's
were
every couple years.
If they got that idea, and I think that's probably, that's every franchise wants to have what Marvel has.
I don't know that. I don't think they should try
Harry
to strive
Potter.
Harry Potter was once a year.
Yeah.
But it's done now. It was 8 movies in 8 years in a row. Now it's done. And I think there's some sort of
got that Fantastic Beasts.
Well, yeah, but that's another story. The thing about Harry Potter was that it follows these kids from every year through. Like essentially high school, through middle and high school. And it makes sense to do one every year because those kids are aging, right? So you have to hurry up the production to make sure you're not getting these 25-year-old kids playing 15-year-olds.
Right.
Stuff like that. So they managed to do that pretty well, I think.
And in the last one, I believe Daniel Radcliffe dies as an 85-year-old man.
That's right.
That's what happens, right? I haven't seen... I'm a little sketchy on the details.
Okay, we're gonna come back to start with a favorite segment of ours this week in Star Wars clickbait.
Oh, Jabba.
What? How? What are you talking about? Huh?
What? Goodness gracious me.
And this one comes straight from the Twitter account of Mr. Pablo Hidalgo himself.
This was a good one.
It's funny. And honestly, Pablo has been, I'm sure he's got a love-hate relationship with Twitter. Like, he is still on there. He doesn't engage fans a lot. He doesn't talk about Star Wars a lot. He tends to talk about Transformers and some of his other fandoms. But when he does talk about Star Wars, it's pretty funny. So the clickbait headline is this from Epic Stream. Star Wars, Pablo Hidalgo midichlorian explanation sheds light on Rey's origin. And then Pablo tweeted, counterpoint, no, it doesn't. So, and I don't do, okay, what's the story here? So what was the actual explanation they're talking about?
Well, who knows? But
Okay.
I mean, it's attached. The headline. The headline implies that Pablo has fed them, or said in a speech or at a convention some important information. And it makes it sound like he said that's what that does, and then he said no.
He has.
So I like it. I like straight from the horse's mouth.
He told me when he was here for FanQuest last year that he's set his tweets to automatically delete. So he does not, like, they do not
You
go
can do
back.
that?
Yeah, apparently you can. So, and he has to use a third-party app for it. But yeah, he goes, and so I don't know how long they stay up there for. But it says on his kind of his bio part of his Twitter account, please consider the environment before printing out this account. Because I don't know if people are printing his tweets to make sure that I guess they could take screenshots of them or whatever. But yeah, I think he just doesn't want people going back and looking at something he said like 5 years ago and putting that into the context of a movie coming out.
Who has
this
time
year.
for that garbage?
Well, people do this all the time.
I know, it's
right?
terrible.
This is what the internet is built on. People going way back in people's Twitter's accounts and finding things that are, controversial or taken out of context, not horrible.
See, I did that once on my own account, and I was like, "This is lame." Like when you read some of the early tweets or whatever.
Oh yeah, I've
and
never
you're
done
just
that.
like, "Oh yeah, it's." But if anything, I don't look back and go, "Oh, I never should have said that." But I look back and I go, "Wow, Twitter was new then." It's like, remember when Instagram launched and everybody went filter crazy?
Yeah.
They went filter mad
Yeah.
for like a period of a year.
Yeah.
And so you go back and look at those early Instagrams and everybody's like heavy filter. Like and mine is like some strange, like if there's a music video on TV, I'd take a shot of it and then I put a filter over it and I'd post it there and stuff. And so I have an Arcade Fire one
Awesome.
and I have a Clash one and it's like, what was I doing? And sometimes I look back at that and I'm like, that could be a good Instagram account, but just not mine.
What I appreciate, I'll tell you this, what I appreciate about your Instagram account now, and I do kind of mimic this in some ways, not always, but when you see something in the natural world, a sign or some sort of a thing, and you think a funny thought occurs to you, and then you take a photo and you put it out there. The one I remember from you was the food fair one from last month or the month before. What did it say?
Or we say, use Lilac Street entrance.
Because it's in quotation. It's in quotation marks.
It's like, that's our motto. Use the other entrance. Yeah, I like
and
that.
there are whole websites dedicated to the misuse of punctuation like that. So that would be a good one for them.
But it's also, I consider Instagram a good headline writing exercise, like just to keep your mind in the zone.
Yeah.
You have a picture and you need a headline to go with it. And so I like it. I try to encourage advertising students to think that way as well. Like, I guess journalism students could do the same thing, like where you're just trying to match the words with the picture. And it's just good to have your brain thinking about that.
I was at the Half Moon Drive-In in Lockport this weekend, and had a lovely
Winnipeg institution.
for sure. Well, Manitoba institution.
Manitoba, right?
And I had a cheeseburger and fries and a classic kind of meal there, and they have a little mini arcade.
Oh, yeah.
They have some really good. Actually, they have a great Kiss pinball machine. They've got a Iron Maiden pinball machine, and they've got a Star Wars Phantom Menace pinball machine. And so I took a photo of it and I said the Phantom Pinball. And it turns out the Phantom Menace it was not completely operational. It was dark. A lot of the lights were burnt out, I think, in it, so it was not working properly. So I played one game and I lost, and I just kind of left it at that. But it was neat to see these pinball machine. It had to have been released in 1999 when the movie came out. So it's a 20-year-old pinball machine sitting there, and it was a weird shape and that kind of stuff, but it was kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, I like that place, and I like the vintage arcade that's still.
I love anywhere where I can go play just regular arcade games without having to get tickets or anything like that, where it's just a regular video game.
There's
I
one at
love
the
that.
Forks now.
Well, it was a pinball machine,
yeah.
specifically pinball machines.
Well, and a few video games.
Oh, do they? Okay.
It's kind of around the corner.
Yeah, no, I know where it is. I
place,
just
but
thought it was
yeah.
all pinball, though.
They got some video, although there's no sort of like cornerstone of video, or like there's no Pac-Man, let's say.
Yeah.
It's kind of like some of the lesser games that some of the side scrolling ones that came later.
Yeah.
So they're not from the dawn of video games.
Well, that's more probably my era anyway. Pac-Man, I always saw Pac-Man as like an older game when I was a kid.
Yeah.
For me, it was the Street Fighters and Mortal Kombats were the games I played in the arcade, or what's the
second
the
wave.
racing? Cruisin' USA was the racing game I used to play all the time, and all that stuff. So anyway.
Great. Hey, one other thing about Pablo's account, first of all, is if you ever want a funny exercise, go in there and just see what people tweet Pablo. And just the thing that I feel most sorry for Pablo about is the degree of misspellings of Star Wars things that he has to see
it's
every
gotta drive
single
him
day.
nuts.
And the ones I've been noticing lately are Anakin is always misspelled. Millennium Falcon, of course, is an old classic. Wookiee has 2 E's on the end, but most people don't think to spell it that way. So you get that going on too. And even when Pablo agrees with someone, sometimes I'll like look at the person's tweet and it's considering that Pablo graduated from creative communication.
And he wears that. Like
And-
he is a great ambassador for our program because he knows that C-3PO is spelled with is it an O or a 0? I don't know which one. Anyway, he knows.
It's a 0.
It's a 0. So
Yeah.
not an O.
I
Like a
believe,
lot of people say the letter O.
Oh, right.
But he knows all of this stuff, and he lives that.
Yeah.
I think he used to do it more in his older job when he was on the website content team and writing press releases. He was in the PR part of the company. Now he doesn't have to worry about that, but he can't get rid of that. He can't get rid of that instinct to want to correct people.
When he came in here to talk, and now it's been a few times, so I can't remember which one it was, but I remember him saying that he notices every single time when somebody misspells Millennium Falcon. He notices it. It's not. He doesn't just let it wash over him. It irritates him.
Oh, I bet. It would irritate me as well.
It irritates me to see it.
Yeah.
To see it in his feed. So that's bad. And one other thing about clickbait this week that I want to point out, which I think we need to stop this before it runs rampant, and that is people who consider speculation to be spoilers.
Oh yeah, you said that was happening on the Pablo thing.
And they're calling them speculative spoilers.
Come on,
it's like,
guys.
I imagine Darth Vader will float into the frame and his costume will burst into flames and Hayden Christensen will come dancing out of the costume.
It's no business, like show business.
Speculative spoiler. It's like, no, that's just bullshit that
Speculation.
I dreamt up.
You're guessing. You're full-on guessing.
So if somebody is guessing based on nothing, that's not a spoiler. And speculation can't reveal something. Have you noticed that too? Headlines that say, new Star Wars speculation reveals who Rey's parents are. Speculation.
It does not reveal. It speculates who Rey's parents are.
That's right.
The verb there is speculate.
So can we just put a fine point on this and say speculation once and for all? It's not a spoiler unless the person was talking to somebody who worked on the film. Then it's a spoiler.
What if the speculation turns out to be right? Like, what if you guess?
So what?
Has that
It's
happened?
still speculation.
Has that happened?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, we've guessed things that have turned out to be true, and we've guessed things that turn out to not be true.
What have we guessed to turn out to be true? I don't remember anything.
Well, I know we're not batting zero. Like
You might be right about Rey's parentage coming up. That's still one
there's
that's out
an example.
There's still one out there, but many people have made the same speculation that Rey's parents are that Leia is her mother. You believe Leia, or
I believe it's Solo and Leia, but that Leia never told anybody, including Solo.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And I do believe it could even be twins, but they could be twins. But that once again, that could be true, and it could just be complete utter nonsense that I thought up. Okay, so speculation is not a spoiler, and it reveals nothing. It reveals the imagination of the person who's speculating, and nothing else.
Okay, so let's talk about the.
Now that we've said that, let's speculate.
Let's speculate. Well, no, because we're actually going to talk about a real thing. The Galaxy's Edge theme park opened up at the end of May, I believe, in Disneyland, and the Disney World edition is going to be opening up, I believe, next month. And I guess the attendance is not what they were hoping for. The article I just read says that it really comes at it from the angle of they're cutting hours for employees there. So a full-time, like 40-hour, I think, like a lot of workplaces, they don't guarantee 40 hours. They say between 30 and 40 hours to give them some flexibility in case attendance isn't high. It's the same thing a restaurant would do. So in this case, they say the crowds have not been as big at Galaxy's Edge as they hoped. They're expecting, for example, 2-hour lineups at the Millennium Falcon ride, and then their lineups have been more like 1 hour, so about half as much. And therefore, some employees are having their hours cut by maybe 5 to 10 hours per week.
And Bob Iger on the conference call.
Oh, yeah. What was that? I'm going to see if I can find that.
Oh, you're going to find the audio?
But you tell me what you have to say about it.
Well, let's let the man speak for himself if we can let him. But he addressed it. It's enough of an issue that he addressed it with shareholders, though he minimized it in what he said. And we're certainly not implying that the park is going to close down or anything like that. But it's interesting to talk about why the attendance might not be what they were expecting.
Okay, so here's what we'll do. We can't find the actual audio. If I find it, I'll insert it. I can look for it later. But here's the piece that we have. This is quoting the conference call that he was on. It was an earnings call to shareholders, and he says this is Bob Iger explained why there were lower numbers at Star Wars Galaxy Edge than expected. He said a number of factors that affected the attendance numbers. First of all, helped in part by some of our efforts, there was tremendous concern in the marketplace that there was going to be a huge crowding when we opened Galaxy's Edge. No duh.
I think that's right.
Some people stayed away just because they expected that it would not be a great guest experience. Absolutely. If you don't want to go there when something first opens up, you're going to think that it's going to be too packed and not fun. And it was kind of at the beginning, right? For the first month or so, they did have that, but they managed it really well. At the same time that was going on, all the local hotels in the region, expecting a huge influx of visitation, raised their prices. So it simply got more expensive to come stay in Anaheim. In addition to that, we raised our prices. We brought our daily price up. So if you think about local visitation, we brought the price of a one-day ticket up substantially from a year ago. And they're talking about people who live in the area who come to Disneyland. It would be more for them to come. Don't worry about forget about the hotels. And then we opened up Galaxy's Edge with one attraction instead of two. The second one is going to open in January. And all of those factors contributed to attendance that was below what we would have hoped it would be. That said, guest satisfaction, interest in the attraction for the land is extremely high. It's the most popular thing at the park. And so long term, they're hoping that it's going to do well. They're doing, I guess Galaxy's Edge is open up this month in August in Orlando.
Right.
And the second ride is coming there first. And it's a ride, I don't remember what it's called. But it's like I think it's based on the newer movies more so. But yeah, that totally makes sense. And I would not, even if I'd had the money to go this summer, I wouldn't have wanted to go, even though I said I was going to. I know I said that, but I would want to wait. And I'm like, as far as trips to Disney World or Disneyland are concerned, most average families maybe do one per ever. Right?
Yeah, that's what I did when I was a kid. Grade 4.
Now, that being said, I do know there are people who go there every single time. We have a friend who's a massive Disney fan and Star Wars fan, and he goes every single vacation he goes to Disneyland or Disney World, and that's his thing. And he's just had a baby boy, so he'll be bringing his child there as well. But for someone like myself, I cannot afford to go there every summer. It's very expensive, and so we've done it. We did it once. We did Disney World in 2016. We're going to try and do Disneyland next year, but with that, we'll also do Universal and some of the other stuff in the California area. But yeah, it's not something you can do. So you want to wait. I don't want to go right away. If they're going to be opening up more rides, I want to wait till those rides are open before I'm going to go.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's a lot of it. I mean, when I hear that it's actually an enjoyable experience where you don't have to wait in line very long, that actually increases
I should go now.
Yeah, that's right. Now might really be the time to go. It'd be sort of nice to see it without it being overrun by people. And to me, that was one of the biggest reasons why I just looked at it and went, oh, God, no thank you. Like, I just pictured a whole day waiting in line, pushing and shoving, like, all of the stuff that you normally...
So do you think they rushed it, though? Do you think they were just too eager to get this thing open, that they rushed it open and then...
I think
or would this have happened at any time?
I think they opened the park when Star Wars was at a lull in general consciousness and the consciousness of people and culture. They released it. I mean, we enjoyed Solo, but in the minds of most people, that movie is a bomb, even though it did all right.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a pretty decent movie. It's certainly not the worst Star Wars movie.
No, I really enjoy it. In fact, it might be my favorite one of the modern era.
You did say that, yes.
And I still enjoy it. Yeah. I've seen it on the plane since, and I enjoyed it a lot. But I think in the minds of most people, it came so fast after the contentious Last Jedi, that I think in people's minds, the Star Wars brand has taken a couple hits, and it's not the pristine brand that it once was, even though the prequels did the same thing back in their day.
People, how soon we forget.
Yes,
right. Like it just
they're beloved now, but at the time, beloved, I should say, by people of generally of a certain generation, love those prequels. And but at the time, everybody. I remember going to the last prequel. The last in the prequel trilogy,
Revenge of the Sith.
and actually enjoying it quite a bit. But I remember the people in the audience were kind of like, that you could see going in. There's a lack of excitement that had been there for other Star Wars
for sure.
movies.
I mean, and we've already said many times in this podcast that is the best of those movies.
Oh, it is.
It's a decent movie as well. But yeah, for the most part, people the excitement wasn't there for the second and third films in those series at all.
Oh no!
We're seeing a similar thing right now. So do you
Yeah.
think that's going to affect the box office of The Rise of Skywalker when it comes out in December?
Well, that's I think there's a lot riding on this last film. And I think it will matter. I think that if this next film doesn't do well, now we're in trouble.
Oh.
Then I don't know. I don't know what Star Wars is after that.
But can we not take a lesson from the prequels and say, you know what, Star Wars is everlasting. Star Wars will ride kind of ride the wave of discontent and survive and come out in something else. I mean, they are launching Disney Plus with the Mandalorian, which has huge anticipation. People are really excited about the Mandalorian.
But once again, that's right before Rise of Skywalker comes out, right? The Disney Plus. It's
November, I believe.
Yeah. So are we giving people too much Star Wars again? That are going to compete with each other?
I don't know. I haven't even been paying attention to that animated series that's been going, Resistance.
No, me neither.
I have not even looked at that in a long time.
Generally, an animated show is, more and more, the more animated shows we have, the more that becomes for kids.
I think this one is definitely aimed at kids.
Yeah.
Like I said, I liked Rebels. I watched it all. I thought it was a great show.
I watch more of that than the others.
Well, yeah, but this one seems more geared towards kids, and maybe it's just the animation style that gets to me, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's partially it. So I do think there's a lot riding on Rise of Skywalker, but I would also point out another couple things about the park. One of them is I think they might have made a mistake to concentrate on the thing that they built as opposed to the classic trilogy. What if Star Wars Galaxy's Edge was Tatooine? What if we just called it Tatooine? The bar was not like whoever Joe Blow's pub, but was in fact the pub.
The Mos Eisley Cantina.
Right. What if the characters you ran into were like Obi-Wan Kenobi and like...
Yeah, but that's not great for branding for the new trilogy, right? They want people to be aware of the new trilogy, what's going to make the money now.
It's all a business decision and a branding decision.
But they're not going to make as much money from those older films as they are for the newer films.
But those are the ones people love, even
for sure.
kids.
Yes, I agree.
Even kids. So for good or bad, they made that decision. And so I guess there's a Rey character there, and there's a Kylo Ren character there, and Stormtroopers, and the new versions of Stormtroopers and stuff. But might it have been more of a pull if it were set in a different era? I'm not even going to say, let's not even say the classic trilogy. Is it better in a different era than what they chose?
You're not going to go to Galaxy's Edge and see Greedo walking around, right? Because Greedo's a character from the original trilogy.
I would see. That's what I'm talking about. Wouldn't it be kind of
cool? Or Bosk or
I like it better already. IG-88.
IG-88.
Although I think he's going to be in the Mandalorian.
Oh, is he? Okay.
They're like IG-91.
There's their opportunity to bring some of these characters into the modern era by releasing this show that takes place around the original trilogy, around this pear-shaped thing we have here, but it does include some of those old kind of bounty hunter characters. Who's the guy with the bandages? Dengar?
Yeah, our favorite.
Right, Dengar got his groove back. So that kind of stuff. Like I'm sure we'll see a lot of those types of characters in this show. It's going to be about a bounty hunter who is going to turn out to be Boba Fett. By the way, I don't think anybody's.
That's a speculative spoiler that reveals something huge.
I mean, who else could it be? I mean,
and it takes place after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
come on.
So, I mean, this is
if Boba Fett isn't in this.
Okay.
Come on. I will bet you.
Let's go down that road for a second.
$100 that Boba Fett is in it.
I'll take that.
And in fact, he might even be the Mandalorian. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
I think that would be obvious, but
yeah.
Okay, let's go down that road for a second. So if they set this, so it's set after Return of the Jedi, which means Boba Fett got out of the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah.
which is something fans have been clamoring for years. So is this too much?
There was gonna be a movie.
That's right. Yeah,
there was
yeah,
gonna be
was.
one. This could,
Josh Trank was going to direct
Yes.
that. Yes.
This
Was
could-
it going to be a prequel though? Was it going to be like Solo and take place before all that stuff?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think this was going to be the one where the fans got their wish, and so then that went away. And I can only think that they must have, for The Mandalorian, used that as the source material to build a show as opposed to a
that's a
movie.
good. I didn't even think about that. That's
It
probably
has to be.
Yeah. They're not going to waste anything
Yeah.
at Lucasfilm, right? They're going to take if they have a solid idea for a script or a story,
Yeah.
they're going to take that and they're going to use it for something else.
Just like we're seeing the expanded universe kind of like coming in every once in a while,
Yeah,
and
for
then
sure.
leaving again.
Yeah,
you know,
they're bringing stuff in.
Yeah.
So there you go. So we're gonna get Boba Fett and all his buddies.
Maybe.
How do you think he got out of the Sarlacc pit? Did he just climb his way out?
I think it's been the tale in term has been told already in expanded universe stuff. Did it not? Where he wriggled his way out, used his jetpack. I can't remember.
We
what-
saw-
how, and we saw his armor.
His
and
armor
he-
in the Aftermath books,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's right.
So I mean, come on.
All
Like,
right.
and that was going to tie into the Boba Fett movie, the Aftermath book.
Yeah, that's right.
So come on, Oh, there was some Mandalorian armor for sale,
some
and it had
scarring
been-
on it.
Yes, it had been burned by the acid of the Sarlacc. Like, wah, wah. What could this be? That's what the Q 1,000 bloggers.
yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Q 1,000 clickbaits. Yeah. So I think we're gonna get Boba Fett, but I also think so. I don't know. So that's something that's debatable. Is what should Galaxy's Edge? What era should it be focused on? The other thing that appears by all accounts to be true is the upscale nature of that part of the park and the cost associated with the, like, you build your own lightsaber and then you pay them $200 to keep your lightsaber, I believe. So $200. If you went there with your kids, would they all want a lightsaber?
Yes, of course they would.
And it would be, so that'd be $600.
Jeez, man, are you kidding me?
You would drop $600.
I would
taking
not.
your kids there.
Yeah,
but if like, I don't know how it works. Like I've heard, like, you want the full experience when you go there.
Yeah.
So I think some poor saps just bring their kids in. I think you have to book the lightsaber.
So we
tutorial.
did the similar thing we did when we were there was we did the Bibbidi Boppity Boutique for my daughter who was younger at the time. She
What
would
the
have been,
hell is that based on?
It's based on the Bibbidi Boppity Boo. You know the song they sing during Cinderella, I believe it is, when they turn her into a princess.
Wow, I forgot that.
Bibbidi Boppity Boo.
Haven't seen that one in a while.
Yeah, that's I'm sure that's
I
Cinderella.
was about to guess Mary Poppins.
It sounds like a Mary Poppins
yeah.
song, but I believe it's Cinderella.
Oh yeah.
So it is.
Actually, I think yeah.
My singing
I think I
brought it back
remember
to you?
that.
Okay.
It's
so
so-
it's
it's
the sequence.
slowly coming back
She
to
turns
me.
the pumpkin into the carriage and all the rats into people. Anyway, so this
I'm
is
more familiar with the Jerry Lewis Cinderfella, which came out. So I was thinking of the wrong one. That
All right.
explains it. Sorry.
So anyway, this place, you book it ahead of time and you bring your daughter in there. Or, I mean, obviously you could be a boy as well. It doesn't matter. But, and they basically give her a princess makeover. So they do her hair. We brought her, Shannon was 7 at the time. And she was she's not into princesses anymore. She's very much into
She
hair.
likes statues now.
She likes statues of football coaches. See my Instagram for reference on that.
She likes statues.
But yeah, so she liked that stuff. And she had a Disney princess dress that we bought her at some point. So she put that on and she got her hair done and got made out and then they made over and then they take some photos and everything. And that's an extra service. It wasn't super expensive. It wasn't $200, right? I did buy them lightsabers at Disney World at a Star Wars kind of merchandise store, and I think they were like 30-ish to $40-ish. I can't remember exactly. American, which is maybe closer to 50 Canadian, but that's like still more reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not like they're like replicas of the the standard. There's a Kylo Ren, a Luke green lightsaber, and I think the other one is the blue lightsaber. So there's like 3 different ones. But they're just the ones with the solid kind of plastic rods. Like they're not the telescoping ones. They're just like you turn it on. But it is I think that's the one I wanted, like where you can still wave it around and the motion sensor makes the noise. You can hit it and it makes a sound like it's hitting another lightsaber. So those are pretty cool. And that's as much as I would want to spend on that.
Well,
But you might be right in that they're kind of alienating a portion of the audience who does not want to spend that kind of money.
Well, and as he mentions, the price has gone up to get into the park,
Yep.
to stay in Anaheim, to do all that stuff. You're now looking at thousands of dollars plus $200 lightsaber. Plus, the drinks at the bar
Yeah,
are
or
expensive.
even just the food at the bar. One thing we didn't do with those character dining experiences, which is $50 a plate, and that's where you sit down. That's I'm sure exactly what that bar is. So you sit down, there's characters everywhere, and blah blah blah. But you know, one of the things I liked about Disney World is that I really felt that sure you pay the $100 a day or whatever it is to get in, and of course you get a discount if you buy multi-day passes. It's around $100 a day. But once you get in, it's not that expensive. Like I found the food to be, there was a lower cost option for food, so that you didn't have to spend tons of money on food. The merchandise I felt was really reasonably priced. If you wanted to buy like a stuffed animal or something, it was $20, or not too expensive for that stuff. So I thought that was kind of the trade off you got for that. You pay the $100 admission fee. All the rides are included in that, so all you have to do is sit in line for 5 hours. You can get on Space Mountain. So that's that was okay. I was okay with that. But if they're talking about raising the price of the stuff inside the park and raising the cost to get in, that's going to make me think twice before going there.
Well, from by all accounts, the Star Wars, the gifts you buy at the gift shop and all that, it's very upscale stuff.
Yeah,
and
I don't know if I want that.
Yeah, it's cool. And the stuff I've seen online looks like it looks pristine. It looks like the best merch in that you've ever seen in the whole galaxy. But not everybody has that kind of money, and for most people, it means buying one single thing, I would guess.
Well, I would argue that goes against what Walt wanted for these parks.
Perhaps.
I think he wanted this to be accessible to everybody in America, right? That's why he built Disney World on the East Coast, because he wanted people from the eastern part of the country to not have to drive across the country to go to Disneyland, right?
Right.
So he did Disney World. And again, it was very, very affordable at the beginning. Like, it was not very expensive. When you went to Disney World, it was probably not a ton of money, right?
We flew to Florida, I remember, and I don't think it was. I still have photos of the experience, and it was like, hey, there's Donald Duck, like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
like
you can walk up and say hi and stuff. These days, you have to wait in line to get a character spot, to get a photo op. It costs you money for the photo, everything like that.
There was none of that.
Yeah,
it was just like.
So I think that they're in their, and I mean the cynical fan would say it's Disney greed, but really Disney is the one who started this whole thing, and he would have wanted it to be affordable for people to experience the park. So I think they're getting away from that. I think that they've hopefully learned that lesson, and they'll scale that back.
I think so. I think there's one other thing that might be at work here too, and that is I think right now in time, the biggest Star Wars fans are 50-year-old men. Don't you think so?
I don't know. I don't know that that's the case.
Like, who are the tried and true, like?
I think the most affluent Star Wars fans are 50-year-old men.
You're
the ones with the money
who can afford the park.
Exactly. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So my guess is that if you go there, people who can go there and afford the park, like I'm not hearing any young people saying to me, one day I'm going to go see Star Wars Land. All I'm hearing is guys my age going, I'm going to that park kind of thing, because they can afford it.
And my kids would be more excited to go to Disneyland as a whole than just Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
Right?
So I think the destination that they had in mind is something that older Star Wars fans, who, by the way, are mostly male. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to say that but it's just a reality that I think the original trilogy, as we've seen, was very white and very male. And so as a result, guess who the Star Wars fans are later in life? The folks who saw it when they were 9 years old.
I guess.
Okay, so I think there's some of that, and I think one of the worst things for branding, and you see this sometimes, like when I go into the Levi's store, they look at me like, oh, Christ, this is bad for our brand, seeing this oldie in here buying his jeans or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there's
you've been buying
bit
Levi's for how many years, right? You have brand loyalty to Levi's.
But let's be honest, what they want is they want young people in that store buying that stuff. I don't think that's going to
happen.
They want it.
Levi's does not strike me as a brand that's hip to the young crowd.
By the way, I had a great moment at the Levi's store where I bought my Levi's, or I tried to. I was standing at the checkout, like holding my pants, like
as you do
when you're buying them.
Yeah.
And the girl is like sort of semi-helping someone over there, and she looks at me and she's like, do you want to buy those? And I said to her, no, I always stand at checkouts holding pants that I don't wish to buy. I said to her, and which, by the way, she laughed at. It was funny.
Okay.
I tried to deliver it in a humorous way, and I blame Mad Magazine's Al Jaffe snappy answers to stupid questions for making me do that.
Well, then that person has no idea what that is.
But so imagine, let's move my terrible scenario, my cautionary tale, to Star Wars land.
Okay.
You want to buy those drinks? Nah, I'm just standing here for nothing. That kind of thing. It's going to be a bunch of 50-year-old men, probably. I'm guessing a lot of the attendees, or 50-year-old men who make the decision on behalf of their children. And then bring everybody there.
Well, that's partially my. I'm not 50 yet, but it's partially my goal.
Well,
in
40 some 50,
40s to 50s.
Right.
I'm
is Star Wars land dad land? Is
it
the
is.
question I'm asking.
I bet you it is, because I'm going there. I want to go for me.
Yeah.
Now, my kids are kind of excited about it, but Shannon, my daughter, is more excited about the Harry Potter world. Right. She wants to go see that because she's a huge Harry Potter fan. Luke is probably more excited about the Marvel stuff, the superhero stuff, because he likes that. And Jack wants to go to VidCon to meet YouTubers. So that's our plan for our trip next year.
And that also speaks to the fractured nature of entertainment these days.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not like back in the day. If you would have opened this park in 1978, it would have been kid land. It would have just been like every kid would have made that pilgrimage. I would have begged to go there.
The thinking would have been, though, that that's too specific for a theme park. I don't think they ever felt that. Yeah, you could do that. Like Disney was always.
It would have
built,
been a ride.
Yeah, exactly. Disney was built on the kind of staple of Disney characters. Every ride was themed after a different movie, basically, and then you can go and experience these movies in real life. That's what the original Disneyland was about. Quickly, I just want to talk about this. I want to ask you about your toy collection, but first, I have a quote here off this article that says. Disneyland has become something of a ghost town because of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. People have flocked to the new Star Wars land, leaving the rest of the park wide open. So guests have noticed decreased wait times on other parts of Disney since Galaxy's Edge opened up, which is kind of interesting. They say they've increased their capacity by 20% to Disneyland. So it's another additional 20% more space. So that means that so they're not getting the increase of crowds. They're not getting 20% more people going, but those people are focusing more on the Star Wars part than other parts of the world, which is interesting. And there's a video here. I'll tweet this out. A video of a guy like just taking a video in the middle of like the regular town square of Disneyland, and there's nobody, which is insane this time of year.
It's like back when I went in grade 4.
There should be. I was there in August of 2016, and it was packed. It was just packed.
See, and that to me, like what I remembered about Times Square the first time I went there in the 80s in New York was that there's nobody there. And it was kind of seedy.
Oh,
and
man. You went to,
yeah,
that would have been crazy.
It was seedy. There was like a Howard Johnson's, kind of like a trashy Howard Johnson's in Times Square.
Wow.
And tons of ads, but it was not like you go there now and it's like Disney World.
It is a
and
theme park.
Packed.
Absolutely, yep.
You can't cross the street. It is just crowded, like just overrun.
I've never
with
been in
people.
a more thicker sea of humanity than in Times Square.
Yeah, so that's something else. Like it's sort of the Disneyfication of lots of other things.
Right.
So families have a choice. Like Times Square is now for families. Like so people have a choice now, and that's part of the reason. Like back in the day, there was no choice. If you wanted to do something with your kids, you took them to Disney World. It didn't really matter what.
You can go meet Disney characters in Times Square.
Well, you can.
They're not licensed, but you can meet Elmo. I guess Elmo's not Disney, but
did you see last week they had that there was a motorcycle backfired in Times Square and people were afraid it was a shooter.
Okay,
so it was like a bad of course because it was a terrible week in the news last week.
Right.
And so they show the footage of people scrambling in Times Square, and a freaking Pikachu runs by. A person in a Pikachu outfit, I think holding the head, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I may be remembering wrong. And you're like, this is a serious news story, and they're showing Pikachu running by.
Oh, man.
I know. I was like, is that intentional? What are we supposed to think when you see Pikachu without a head running by?
All right, tell me have you got any new toys this summer?
No, I am. And in fact, what I would say is I always go look. I still go look, but it is desolate. There's nothing. And in fact,
much like Disneyland.
In most of the stores, there is zero. There's nothing. Toys R Us has a fairly decent selection
so
still.
Are we waiting for the new movie? Is that what's happening?
Toys R Us Canada is still getting the shipments that were going to go to the U.S. because it still is, if anything, it's overstocked. But there's nothing really new coming off the coming off the truck
No.
that I've
So
seen.
and we're gonna have a Force Friday, right?
Yeah, that's coming up
probably in
soon.
September.
I think so.
Okay.
As usual. When was that? Is that
It was in September. It was 2 months out from the.
usually a couple weeks into classes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a couple months out from the release of the film when it was
Yeah.
for, I guess it was for The Last Jedi.
And I would still go on the whatever that Friday morning will be.
Yeah,
But
let's do that for sure.
what
I'll
has-
do it too.
Yeah. What has happened in Canada though? The last time they had a Force Friday, which was Last Jedi.
It must
I
have
guess.
been, yeah.
Yeah, that I don't think they might not have called it that time.
No,
Can't remember.
I think the only time they actually called it that
The
was
first
for
one.
the Force Awakens.
Right. Okay. So for that one, I went to Walmart like I did the first time. The first time I went there, it was just like, here's everything. It was perfect. The second time I went there, it was like, there's nothing. And then I asked the clerk, "You got something back there?" And they're like, "I guess we do. I guess we have some boxes." And it was kind of like you had to like strong arm them to get them to bring it out. So I'm not sure. I don't know if this is something that's just sort of diminished in excitement, or if this is something that's going to rekindle.
I bet you it comes back. I think D23 is going to be the launch of
Yeah.
the next phase of marketing of Star Wars, and we're going to see it really ramp up in the next few months.
Like as it stands, I'm not that worried about us getting tickets to see the.
No, I'm not either. I will go opening night. I'm sure it won't be a problem.
Like Force Awakens, it was like the crashing websites and but just like all the other trilogies, by the time you get to the last film in the trilogy, the pressure's off.
Yeah, I guess
little
so.
bit.
Incidentally, speaking of toys, it was an interesting tweet from Mark Hamill this week where he revealed the Star Wars figure he's always wanted.
Yes.
And it turned out to be of John Williams, which I think is brilliant. It was hilarious. It was like this mock-up packaging, like looks like a Kenner package with a picture of John Williams on it, and then a little kind of a figure of a guy in a tuxedo, like looking like John Williams. And I'm like, that is so fitting because he is as much of a star of Star Wars as anybody else.
Give him a cameo in the film.
And again, and I know I mentioned this on Media Nerds, but maybe I didn't mention it here. I listened to Inside Star Wars, yeah, which was a podcast, and Blockbuster, which is another podcast that's more about. Blockbuster is about George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and just kind of their dynamic in the 70s when they were both working on, like George Lucas was working on Jaws and then later Close Encounters, and George Lucas, did I say Spielberg? Steven Spielberg was working on Jaws and later Close Encounters, and George Lucas was working on Star Wars. Anyway, throughout all of that, on both those podcasts, John Williams is the common thread between those guys. And his music, and I watched Jaws recently. I finally bought it on Blu-ray for $8 at Walmart. What a deal. But the music in Jaws is perfect. The music in Star Wars is perfect. And those films are not as good without that music.
Oh, no.
There's no way any other music in there, and those films are not as good.
Absolutely.
So John
not.
Williams deserves to have his own figure for sure.
And by the way, did you see, this kind of ties in nicely to the news that this week his brother, John Williams' brother, Don Williams, says his brother has 135 minutes of music to write for the new film. And so everyone's like, oh, the running time's 135 minutes for The Rise of Skywalker. And I think he just pulled that out of his butt.
I don't think that's not how that works at all. They're not going to run the entire music underneath the movie. They bring back the same themes over again. That seems like a lot for a movie.
So
right?
he said that the Academy of Scoring Arts hosted a score study for John Williams' classic Jurassic Park score, and Don Williams was on hand to discuss his siblings' legendary career.
Okay.
So he dropped 135 minutes, and everybody went, "That's how long it is."
That's
now,
not
I
true.
don't know. I think he might have just.
I do fully. I'll call it right now. This is going to be more than 2 hours. That's the trend Hollywood is going in these days, and I'm sure it will be. It shouldn't be, but it is. That's just kind of the way it goes. But it'll be like 2 hours 15 minutes or something like that. I'll say.
Yeah.
Think that?
Is that 135 minutes?
Yes. There you go. So they're right.
So you agree with Don?
I do agree with Don. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Star Wars Nerds. I'm Dan Vadebonker.
I'm Kenton Larson. Don't let the Force hit you on the ass.
This had better work. Where did you dig up that old fossil? That's no moon.
Now I am